What's up guys, welcome back to Let's Play Doom Complete Classic! So we're moving on to the Spawning Vats, which is the second to last level in episode 2 in the Shores of Hell. So you may have to forgive me because I get a little bit lost in this level, so there's going to be a couple of minor edits, probably just 2, so that I keep track of where I'm actually going. Because this is a pretty big open-ended level, but it's not terribly confusing. It's not like a couple of those levels there earlier in this episode, or even, well, episode 1 was fine. It was actually pretty mild. The smallest levels and easiest levels by far in the entire game. But yeah, Doom 2 really does not hold back when it comes to cryptic level design and large levels like this. Like, it assumes that you've already played the first game and just hands these incredibly hard levels to you right from the beginning. But yeah, Doom 1, it's more of a gradual thing, and we'll have some even more cryptic levels when we get to Inferno. And the problem with those levels is that there will be less terrain to traverse. There will be, you know, cryptic platforms and lots of pits to fall in, and it will be just a nightmare. So there's a blue key door there. We need to obviously find the blue key in order to... we actually need to... The red key door is what leads us to the exit, but we're going to have to find all the keys in order, unfortunately, starting with the blue one. So that's going to bring me to almost the edge of the map here if I can get out there in time. There should be... I believe there's a Baron at the end of this hall. Quite a few imps in the way. There's the Baron's projectile, sure enough. So there's actually an invulnerability sphere right there at his feet, which will be the first time we get to demonstrate that. Got a few shots for my plasma gun, but I have some more rockets, so I'm going to go ahead and use that to take this guy out. Ooh, some infighting broke out there, and he actually killed 2 imps for us. That's pretty helpful, Mr. Baron. We'll just have to repay you with a shotgun. I really hope that the infighting is in the new Doom. They actually just released, GameSpot actually did a stream of the 15 minutes of campaign gameplay from the new Doom. And I gotta say, it looks like they nailed it. They really did. They get what made this game good, and they're definitely replicating the same formula of like open-ended levels where you don't have to fight the enemies in a particular order. You know, the enemies don't appear like deliberately in a cinematic way. They just kind of appear at random or in particular locations around the map. And a lot of the item pickups are the same way. It really looks like they get it. So the invulnerability sphere obviously does exactly what you'd expect it does. It also obscures your vision terribly by inverting the colors into negative or whatever. Negative in black and white. So it's not terribly useful in this level. There was a weird glitch you could do in the what I think is the most faithful port of the PC version to consoles, which is the original Xbox One that was on the Doom 3 Collector's Edition and every copy of Resurrection of Evil. That one has the original audio compression and the original graphics. But that one, there was some weird glitch where you mash the action button over and over again and you will toggle the power-up away. You can sort of store it for later. So if you picked up an invulnerability sphere, you could, you know, just turn it off and use it again later, which is kind of handy. It actually made some of the parts of the game a little bit too easy, as a matter of fact. But I've gotten much better at the game since playing it on that version, of course. Having gone through in so many other different versions since then. But yeah, that's one thing that I definitely hope is there in the new Doom, is the infighting. Just for nostalgia's sake, really. It doesn't really affect the gameplay that much. It would slightly. But one thing I definitely noticed is that the Baron is back. There was no Baron of Hell in Doom 3, but there was no Hell Knight in Doom 1. They just had the Baron of Hell. Doom 2 created the Hell Knight with the same sprite as the Baron of Hell, but just without the pink coloring and a little bit less health. He's a little bit more of a common enemy. So in Doom 3, you know, they took that more iconic name, Hell Knight, and just made it as the big bruiser enemy. It behaved the same way, and I guess the center of this floor here, the little blue tiles can damage you for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they're electrified. But yeah, the Baron is definitely back, and he looks very faithful to his original Doom counterpart, and looks and behaves distinctly differently from the Hell Knights because he's much, much taller, has much more defined features, and is much, much tougher. The Hell Knights appear to behave more like they're more like a melee sort of enemy for the most part. They have a large variety of attacks. There's a teleporter over here where I don't exactly know where that's going to take me, so I'm going to be a little cautious here. Oh, lovely. It took me to a pit of pinkies. One thing I noticed as well with the new Doom gameplay is it appears that pinkies can only be hurt from behind, or they're especially vulnerable from behind, which is interesting considering that, you know, in this game despite the fact that they're pretty hardy, they can take a lot of damage. There is no such thing as location damage in this game. This was before the days of such things, which is totally fine because of the amount of spread your projectiles have. But I'm going to be referring to my map a lot in this level just to make sure I know where I'm going. Still haven't found the blue key yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, there's no such thing as location damage during this, back at the entrance again. There's no such thing as location damage during this era of FPS games. But there didn't really need to be. The fact that there was, you know, some kind of vertical terrain like stairs in this game, that was revolutionary back at the time when you compare it to Wolf 3D. So, as I said before in the previous level, I've lost the Berserk power-up since transitioning from that level to this one. So, but I still have the chainsaw, obviously, because I saved going into every level, so in case I die, I don't have to restart with absolutely nothing. So that means that the chainsaw is going to be my best bet at clearing out this room of nothing but pinkies. So you guys are going to get a nice demonstration of the chainsaw. I'm taking way too much damage, though. The one that I'm attacking with it is not going to be able to hurt me, but the ones beside it will. You want to die? That's one way to die. So, speaking of the Berserk power-up, and how it would have really been nice to have had in this room, I think it's actually in this room somewhere if we can find it. If you really wanted to just... yeah, there it is. If you really wanted to just avoid all those guys and go straight for the Berserk and then punch them all to death, you could do that too. It might be a little bit more efficient than the chainsaw because you can back off and not get hit as much. There's also another invulnerability sphere up there. But I really don't think we're going to use that because there's no more really tough enemies in this level. There's no more barons or anything like that. So I'm not going to take advantage of it. Actually, I said there's no more barons. There's this baron out here, of course, but I'm not particularly worried about him. He's got 2 cacodemons guarding him, but we have the high ground, so we should be okay. I'm going to use my plasma gun to kind of clear the area a little bit here. Deal some good damage on him. There we go. Actually, not 100% sure on how to get that pillar to come down that has the invulnerability sphere on it, so we're just not gonna worry about it. We'll take the challenge of being able to take hits. Later on in the game, the invulnerability spheres will be absolutely necessary for certain almost required encounters that involve having like going through a pit of something, like a pit of acid or lava or something, or fighting like a crap ton of big enemies that you wouldn't be able to survive fighting otherwise. That's usually the situations where they give it to you. Sometimes they just give it to you because they're feeling generous. So I made a slight edit there. I have the blue key now, but I failed to go into this room over here. So the switch was right behind me on the wall, and it just opens up this door and allows me to go through and fight the enemies inside. Nothing too major in there, but we do get some much needed ammo. Some cells, which is really nice. And we have a brief view of that room in there with all the imps in it. We just have that little window we can shoot through, but kind of a waste of time. I don't think there's anything really up there. It may just lead back into a room we've already been in. So, we also, just previously, before I picked up the blue key, we now have the map fully unlocked for this level. And you notice me going back over here is because I noticed on the map that the pillars there, those 3 pillars, were highlighted in yellow, which usually means that they are, if a wall is highlighted yellow on your map, it's a wall that can move. It's a door instead of a wall, or it is something, or there's some kind of switch there. So usually it will highlight things that are interactable on the map, which is how you find secret walls, which is something that they really should have done in Wolfenstein 3D. I tell you what, because mashing your body horizontally into every single wall you pass through is less than ideal, and it's infuriating and downright nauseating because all the textures run together and it looks exactly the same. But I'll still defend Wolf 3D. I'll still play it again any day, really. Alright, so the main edit I did there was just finding out where the yellow key was again. I don't know why I failed to test this level very well, but you guys will have to forgive me for that because we're almost done. We have the yellow key now, and now we can go straight to the exit pretty much. Once we get through this area and get the red key, we'll be right in front of it anyway. We've gone actually past the exit a couple of times already. It's by a pit, suspiciously for some reason. This room is pretty interesting because, or these rooms I should say, are pretty interesting because it's pieces of the UNSC base, or UNSC, UAC. I almost made a Halo reference there. I shouldn't do that because God knows the Doom group has been doing it. But the less said about that, the better. Yeah, you can see actually like some radars and other maps and that kind of thing, and actually a map of Mars. Fairly interesting stuff that is extrapolated on a lot more in Doom 3. Alright, so there's the red key. I don't believe the center of the floor in these hallways will damage us. It almost looks like nice blue carpet almost. It's very strange. So here we can go and use the red key, which leads to a switch, which leads to another switch. For some reason, the first switch just releases this Cacodemon, and the second one actually deploys the platform. So we could either just run to the exit or fight him, but it's probably pretty dangerous to just run to the exit with him floating over there, because he's probably going to float over there and knock you off and kill you. So, on to the final level of the Shores of Hell, the Tower of Babil. Oh no. The Tower of Babil? That's what it's called? That can only mean one thing. There's gotta be a giant of Babil, right? Of course. This level has some of my favorite music too, some really, really eerie and underrated soundtrack. I love this song. I think this is the one called Nobody Told Me About Id, I think is what this track is called. So the Giant of Babil is actually an enemy known as the Cyberdemon, which is basically this game's ultimate enemy, and he is a incredibly strong, incredibly tough giant monster that shoots rockets at us, and he has basically an unlimited supply of rockets. He can kill us in pretty much 2 shots, even with full armor, so we have more than max armor right now. We have super armor and 100 health, and he's still going to be extremely dangerous, so we've got to just keep moving, keep picking up more health bonuses and more rockets in these rooms nearby. So this map is basically just one giant fight against the Cyberdemon. Later on in the game, and when we get into Doom 2, the Cyberdemon will be more common. A lot of Cyberdemon spawns are contextual based on what difficulty you're on. Sometimes there will be, if you're playing on anything other than what I'm playing on, which is Ultraviolence or Nightmare, then you will not get a lot of Cyberdemon spawns. If you're playing on easier difficulties, then the Cyberdemon will simply just not appear in certain levels where he's optional to fight. Here is obviously mandatory. We get enough rockets here to thankfully kill it in several times over, so we'll be able to use those rockets on all the lost souls in the area. Once I clear them out, I'll make sure I'm fully stocked up, and then I'll go after the Cyberdemon. He seems to have retreated into one of the rooms there, which is kind of obnoxious. But yeah, fighting this guy, very, very difficult. It's almost impossible in close quarters because you cannot dodge those rockets very well unless you have a lot of room to maneuver. And like I said, the splash damage they deal is tremendous. And this is where, and I've ranted about this before, but this is especially going to be bad in Doom 2 with another enemy that hasn't been introduced yet. But id Software's taint on the first-person shooter genre, which is homing rockets. Homing rockets are the cancer of the FPS world, pretty much. They are terrible, and every id game has them for the most part. Quake 4 had them, Doom 3 had them, heck, even Wolfenstein has them. It's terrible. So, and they all started right here with the Cyberdemon. So, yeah, impossible to dodge, ridiculous amount of splash damage, and just a big headache. So, yeah, I really, really like this level. It's one of my favorite levels in the game, really. Not only because of the epic battle against the Cyberdemon, but the music as well is just, I really think this song is underrated. So we took a little bit of splash damage there, but nothing too bad. I think there's actually a set number of rockets that it takes to kill this guy. It's a very, very, very high amount. And I think the number of punches that it takes to kill the Cyberdemon, if you were to just use your regular fist, is like several thousand. It's like it's like 30,000 or something like that. It's ridiculous. But if you have Berserk power-up, it's actually possible, but you'd have to have invincibility too. There's an achievement for doing that, for defeating the Cyberdemon with your fists. And you either want to do a crap ton of damage to it first, or have the Berserk power-up and be playing on a low difficulty, because otherwise it's impossible. I reassure you. But not completely impossible. So not only is the Demos lab inside the Shores of Hell now, but it's floating above Hell itself. and is descending down to the shores below. That's wonderful. We're going to get a nice illustration of that here at the end as we complete the Shores of Hell and move on to Inferno. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we're not even close to out of this yet.